In 2017, John Bushey sat down with Karen Sunderman to discuss Highway 61 Revisited, the beloved Bob Dylan radio show that has been a fixture on Northland Public Radio since 1992. Sadly, 6 months after this interview, John Bushey passed away, but his passion for Bob Dylan's music lives on. Highway 61 Revisited has become a cherished part of the local public radio schedule. Now we bring you a special broadcast. John Bushey in conversation with Karen Sunderman in a never-before-aired interview.
What kind of person do you think, just from listening to those early recordings, what kind of person was Bob Dylan in 1962, 63, 64? Is he one of those people who carved his own path?
Oh, definitely. Not only carved his own path, but he was, I guess the best word to describe him was sponge. He would listen and try and learn everything that he heard. He was a prolific reader of everything, He'd have endless discussions with, people around him, like Mac McKenzie, and just learning about, the culture, the, wars, the history, the poetry, and by absorbing everything, it obviously made him hungry to learn new things. And one of those things he was learning about were songs and types of songs, whole genres. And he could learn them very quickly. And he would just pick them up, and then he would, within the realm of how he played the guitar and how he could play harmonica, to the best of his ability, they would get adapted to his style. And it was literally, Bob Dylan, I've never heard it done that way, and he was changing things in a way that other people had not heard before.
Do you have a favorite style, I guess, of Bob Dylan tunes? Because they go from really folk to really rock to, then there was a religion phase.
No, I don't. I like them all. I guess I like Dylan. People talk so much about his voice. I'm one of those that I think he has a great voice, and I think he puts more feeling and passion into his songs than most singers, that people are raving about today. I think he has a lot more passion, a lot more feeling, and I really like that. So I like a lot of the rock. I like a lot of the folk rock. And of course he hates labels, so he wouldn't consider any of them anything. He would say it's just Bob Dylan, and he's one of the few performers that you can just say Dylan, and it has meaning.
What is it about Bob Dylan that draws people? There's probably a million answers to that, but do you have a sense of what he does that's different, that draws people to his music? I
do for me, but like you said, you ask almost every single person and they're going to have a different answer on what draws, his music to different people. I've never heard two people give the same answer for that question. It's just something about, I will say, I think Joan Baez, two people I've heard give a great answer. Joan Baez and Alan Sparhawk of Duluth both gave great answers to that question that really impressed me. I know it was, and I don't remember Alan's whole spiel, but it was great. But Joan Baez said, Dylan touches, if he touches you, if his music, hits you, it can hit you really deep. And for those that hits really deep, it hits really deep, and you really get into it. And I think that was a very good answer. It's just if his music touches you, it can touch you in a way that, you want more and more and more of it. And pretty soon, the 50 albums of official material isn't enough and you want more.
Okay, so tell me your story. How did it hit you? When did you encounter Bob Dylan's music?
I had never heard of Bob Dylan into college. And it was on a college spring break trip that I discovered both the Beatles and Bob Dylan. I never heard of them in high school. And I just, they played the Beatles around the campfires that night, and we played Dylan in one of the vans that was traveling. And I'll never forget that what did it for me is they said, this guy's from Duluth. And like, somebody from Duluth made a record? And I was just extremely surprised, so I came home and decided to investigate it, and went down to Carlson's bookstore, and the next thing I know is I'm like, how many albums did this guy make? Because I'm obsessive enough to want them all, and I just kept finding more and more. I didn't even have a way at that time of finding out, like, you can't just click, discography on a computer, and so I discovered that there was Bob Dylan from Duluth, and that's how I got into him.
But what do you think it was about his music that made you say, I want to know more about this guy? Is it just because he was from Duluth, or was there something in that music that hooked you?
There was something in the music. It was definitely something in his voice that I immediately was drawn to. If I like Bob Dylan, you can guess my favorite Beatle was probably John, and what it is. I just like that little rough edge style to his voice, and really appreciated when I started investigating by Bob Dylan. They're like, whoa, he's writing all these songs too. And so I started reading and collecting books. And that was my favorite, was collecting the books. And I had a very large collection of Bob Dylan, both books, everything from PhD theses to, standard biographies. Just everything I learned about him I seemed to like.
So tell me about the beginnings of Highway 61 Revisited. What were you thinking at that point, and how did you do it?
I wasn't thinking I could do a radio show. John Ziegler, who briefly worked at Carlson Bookstore and worked at KUMD, a brilliant interviewer himself, asked me if I wanted to do a radio show on Bob Dylan, because he knew I collected all this stuff. And I said, I'll give you the material. You can do it. I have no interest. And he said, no, we need you to do it. We need to bring out that expertise. And I don't know how he convinced me, but I ended up one day at KUMD with several CDs, and we made a show. It was October 5th, 1991. The first show aired, and that's almost 26 years ago. I thought it'd last 6 months, a year, 2 years, and then it's like, wow, I made it 5 years. And I never, ever thought it would go this long.
So for anybody who hasn't heard it, describe what that is. What is Highway 61 Revisited?
It's a radio show dedicated to Bob Dylan. And it airs not just Bob Dylan's 50 official albums. It airs the what you would call field recordings or bootlegs. In other words, music you can't hear unless you go to a concert. It airs the cover versions, the music of people that Dylan was influenced by, or that he directly influenced. And so it covers a lot of aspects of Dylan's life that people don't get to hear anywhere else. I think, and I still get a lot of email now that, wow, I've never heard that. I thought I've heard it all, but that was incredible. Hearing that version, I was at that concert, all the way to, do you really think one song is, warrants a whole show? So that was my one negative comment. I put a whole show together on the song Tambourine Man, the original version by the Byrds, Dylan's version, somebody else's, William Shatner's version. And then I had interviews from all the people involved, and they didn't like that. Other people did, but I had one negative comment on that.
You have so much material to draw from. How do you even decide what is going to be on a particular show?
I wake up in the morning, I walk to the shelf, and I'm like, oh, I got to do a show today. Boom, 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 I grab some CDs and head up to the studio when my ride gets there. And, from there I do a show. Sometimes I have a theme in mind, and I'll have to take a little more time grabbing the CDs. Sometimes it'll take a couple days to grab them because I know I want like a certain interview or a certain question that I remember Bob being asked this. I think that was in this interview, so I'll have to scan that interview to try to find it. I'm trying to catalog those interviews now so I know exactly what's on each one, question by question. And it's just, now it has become kind of, to put it in words of one person that I was talking to, it's old-fashioned. I actually don't just go take a CD and grab a song off it like you can with today's technology, grab this song off this CD and be done with the show. I listen to the CD. Halfway through the CD will put me in the mood for the next song. And halfway through that song, it'll put me in the mood for the next song. And somehow my show is compared to like a painting, done old-fashioned. And they really like that about it.
Tell me the story of your interview with Bob Dylan that was broadcast.
Well, yeah, I will never get the chance to interview Bob, so I decided to make up an interview. So I took all my interviews, and his voice isn't even the same on a lot of these, and I put together what sounded like an interview with me and Bob that was live from KUMD. And I was just having fun. And I'm not there when the show airs, it's all pre-recorded. But the guy that was at the station called me and he said, there's all these people in the hallway and they all have Bob Dylan albums and they want to get them autographed. And I never realized it would trick people into thinking Bob was here, but it did. And I learned my lesson. Can't do that.
And so, yeah, are you ever surprised at how many people Bob Dylan's music has touched?
I've learned not to be. You go on just through Duluth Dylan Fest. You go on the train or you go on to any of these events, and it's literally the young, college generation, right up to the people that were around when Dylan was writing the songs in the early '60s, and some of his first fans, and they're all there. They are all here. They're still gathering. It is amazing that a song comes up and they know all the words. It's unbelievable.
I don't know if he set out with that in mind, as a human, as a performer.
I don't think he ever could have. He was just happy to be playing, for $1 a day, down in Gertie's Folk City and getting a free hamburger. and I don't think he ever thought it would evolve into the fame aspect of it, which I don't think he was looking for or wanted. I don't think he wanted it when he got it. But by the time that happened, it was too late. He was stuck in it.
So if you had the chance to talk to Bob, what would you want to know? What are the holes in your own knowledge of Bob that you want to fill in?
Well, there's probably a lot, but I have instructions, very strict instructions from my very good friend that's been very good to me, the guy that owns the boyhood home that he lived in, and we spent so much time remodeling it. My first question has to be, Bob, did you live in the back bedroom or the front bedroom? That's as crazy as it sounds. That would be my first question.
It is kind of cute because that's a pilgrimage site that I think will outlive us both.
Yeah.
I think people will be coming to that place, and I like what they've done with the sidewalk. They have a little medallion in the sidewalk, and I think they respect that place. So I'm glad Bill has it.
Yeah, we gather there every year for Dylan Fest, and we get a nice little crowd, and always have somebody give a little speech, and have some music played on the porch, and we're hoping maybe one day that'll be Bob, and the speech should be by Bob, and it'll kind of be like another Nobel celebration.
Did that surprise you at all, that Nobel thing?
They've been talking about it for years, so then to have him finally win's a little bit of a surprise, yeah. But it didn't surprise me, that much. I mean, his name has been in there for a long time, since in 90s. They've been talking about it, but I had somebody that I know that works in the U.S. government in a real high position tell me, they've never seen so much controversy over anybody winning from America. So it evidently created more controversy too around, well, why him? Why does he deserve it? Or, this opens up a whole new genre, musicians, and only one other had won, and of the, 17 Americans that have won, Dylan was pretty unique and pretty set apart, but I think it's great and definitely well-deserved.
And why do you say well-deserved?
Because I've read a lot of his stuff. And I guess in my humble opinion, his words are not only poetry, they carry a deeper meaning, and it just fits as literature, and definitely well-deserved of something like a Nobel. He's won almost every other award in the book, and he's just so brilliant in how he uses words. Even the response to the Nobel shows that. If you read what he wrote, and if you read the response he had to, Music Hair's speech, where he gave a 25-minute speech, it's just inspiring to read the words.
Is that why you kept doing it for 25 years? What kept you going for 25 years? 26?
They never kicked me off the air. I got to enjoy it so much. It's almost like it's become part of me. It gives me access to great technology. I mean, I started the show on reel-to-reel. And then we went to DAT tape, and then we finally went to just, computer, and So I mean, I still occasionally play records on my show. We don't have any tape decks, I don't think, up there anymore. So I still have hundreds of cassette tapes of Bob, and I am trying to get them converted to CD just for posterity in hopes that someday I can, use them and play them again. But it's a love, a passion of mine that I am both thrilled and honored that KUMD has allowed to go on this long, and the powers that be. We did get, what's the best word, booted off the air would be the best term, by the powers that be, Columbia Records, way back close to when I started. And I had a friend in Duluth currently writing a biography on Bob, on him and his friendship with Dylan and all those early, he was stage manager and manager of Bob in many ways, was Lou Kemp. And I passed some tapes on to Louis Kemp, and he used to like my show, so he took the tapes. I'm not even sure what he did with them. I asked him a couple of weeks ago what he did with them. Did he ever really pass those on to Bob? And he said, let's say Bob heard them. Leave it at that. So, he's still protective of Dylan, and Bob did hear him. Evidently, he gave permission, and the permission went back down the line, the chain of command, and back with 3 rules. Don't invade his privacy. It doesn't go to other radio stations. And I've forgotten the 3rd one. But it was something similar. So they, as long as I follow those 3 rules, I guess I'm free to stay on the air. And I had a lot of communication when the 25th anniversary of my show came up with the front office, who supplied a beautiful autographed album, just beautifully, big signature on the front, and they never took me off the air, so I assume I'm okay and good to be here, hopefully to stay.
That puts you in pretty rare company, you know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there's anybody else I know of in the world that gets away with what you do.
That's a fair statement. A little scary to think that way, but whoever that is, I just want to say thank you, and I'm deeply honored that I've been allowed to. I try to do it with great respect. We also try to use a little humor too. I've got some pretty funny songs and some pretty funny parodies, and certainly mean no disrespect for any of those, but hope that the bulk of the people enjoy it, and I think they do.
So after your first question to Bob about which bedroom he slept in, what would your second, third, fourth, are there areas of his life that you're still curious about, or his music? What are you more curious about, his life or his music?
That's a great question. I mean, I would hope to see many more albums come out. What direction is he going? What direction is he heading? The kinds of questions where you get pretty touchy responses, generally speaking. The kind of questions he himself doesn't know, and if he doesn't know, he's like, why ask it? That's the kind of stuff that I would like to know. Is he doesn't have a definitive answer, so he's not going to answer it. Oh. Not going to say anything.
It's just a fascinating human being.
Yeah.
It just is, and to see where that goes. Definitely a man who's carved his own path. Does he inspire you that way?
Oh, yeah. Definitely. Yeah, he, from the first early days in New York, the summer of '61 in fall, he was living with Eve and Pat McKenzie, and crashing on their couch. And a young boy named Peter McKenzie, the son, was 4 years younger than Bob, and I remember he was telling me, I was at Harvard University, and I told everybody I knew Bob, and no one believed me. I was a freshman. And he said, and all of a sudden Bob came to perform. It was 1964. And I told everybody I knew him and I could get backstage. And afterward, I went to this big security guy standing at the rope and say, tell him, Peter McKenzie's here. And they wouldn't even, nobody's getting backstage. And he says, tell him Peter McKenzie's here. And something about the way he said it, the guy says, I'll tell him. He went back expecting the typical, keep him out. And he says, Peter, get him back here. And so the guy had forgotten Peter already, came back out. Is there a Peter McKenzie here? That's me. And he got to go backstage. His girlfriend wasn't allowed to. She had to stay out front, but he got to go back and catch up. And he said, I got to meet Joan Baez, who was backstage with Bob. She had come out and sung. And it's a great story. And people have always wanted to, for some reason, be around Bob, just to be around him. And for what reason, I don't know. But he's, one of those people that, as he said in one of his interviews, people would come around and ask me about organic farming. And the interviewer said, well, Bob, what do you know about organic farming? Nothing, was his response. But people seem to want to think he had the answers.
So how many Bob Dylan concerts have you been to, and have you ever been backstage?
I have been backstage once, and I've been to, I don't know, I never counted the concerts. I've been too busy trying to go. But I'll be going to another one now next month, where I won't be backstage, 7th row, dead center. I always do get good seats. I don't know how many. I would guesstimate about 30 or 40 concerts I've been to.
Favorite one?
And I feel good because I know people that have been to 500 or 600. So I just think of them and I go, no, I'm not obsessed.
A little obsessed, just a little. I have to ask you a couple about your own collection of Bob Dylan stuff. How many recordings do you have?
Again, I have no idea how many actual recordings. I know my bookshelf is about 4 feet wide, and it goes from the floor all the way up to the ceiling. And I've got one shelf for cover versions and 1.5 shelves for official material. The rest is probably for, let's call them field recordings, unofficial recordings. A lot of it is poor quality, audience with a lot of background, hooting and, woo, 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 and all that kind of stuff. And some of them are really much better quality. I save those for the show. And then I even have a bunch of soundboards, which of course end up on the show. The soundboards being, right off the board, sounds like a recorded in a studio. And that's what I'm kind of collecting now, are a lot of the soundboards. Trying to get them. I'm trying to put all my Dylan music on 3 flash drives right now. That's my big project. I've got the official stuff done. I've got the cover versions done. They each took 1 flash drive, and now it's good. It might take a couple for the bootleg end of it. But I want to stick to better quality, so I'm hoping to cut it down to 1.
And in all this material, do you have a favorite song?
A favorite song? Yeah, I do. Surprisingly, I got another story for you here, but surprisingly, Shelter from the Storm. No matter how he does it, I like it. Just love that song. He's done it almost reggae. On the albums, he's done it acoustic, kind of folk. He's done it rock on the album Hard Rain during the Rolling Thunder. I like it no matter what. But there's another song that I like, and it's very personal to my life right now with my illness, is Not Dark Yet. It's not dark yet, but it's getting there. And I told this one band, I asked them if they'd play at my funeral. And he said, we'd love to. He said, I want this song. And I wanted that song played at my funeral. But now they play it like every show. And every show, I'm like, not now. I'm tearing up, and the tears are starting to come down, and it means a lot. And it's one that B.J. Rolfson, Bob's English music teacher, recited as a poem. And they asked him why that song, and he said, it's pertinent to my life right now as I come to the end. And it's Not Dark Yet is the name of the song. It's a beautiful song the way Bob does it. And I certainly didn't expect the local band to learn it quite yet, hint, hint, but they did, and I'm thankful to them for learning it.
Which leads me to the other question. Everybody thinks he hates, his roots here. He doesn't like Duluth. He doesn't like the range. Blah blah blah. What is your response to that, or what do you see in what he said and what he's sung?
Thanks for asking that. One of the goals of Duluth Dylan, the group, the Duluth Dylan Fest, is to make people aware that he does not dislike his roots, that he actually cares very deeply for them. He likes Duluth. He's actually made several comments. There's a comment on his best one was made to a reporter from Rolling Stone that was off air, and he said, look, every time I do an interview, I talk about Duluth and it gets cut. I don't want you to cut Duluth out of what I just said. And all that came out. Then the guy had, they had to use the part about Duluth, although some of it didn't come out. But he's had really nothing but positive things to say since the back of his first record album, the back of his second record album. There's nothing negative in there. He's from Duluth, Minnesota. We got to mention. Grew up in Hibbing, nothing negative. Some people will read something, negative into a few of the songs, North Country Blues, but that was just the truth, was the fact that town was kind of, the mining town was kind of dying, and look what happened to Duluth here. The mining is pretty much gone. We still have it here, but it's more tourism now. And I think they'd like to capitalize a little bit on the fact that Bob Dylan was born from here, a Nobel winner and everything else. It's very important.
I don't know, and maybe you do. Does he realize how I think Duluth and Hibbing has groups of people that have really embraced his legacy and want to preserve that and celebrate that? Is he gratified by that? Does he like, oh yeah, well, whatever, that's their deal,
Well, I know it's at least that one. I know he's aware of it. What his exact response was, I wasn't there, but so I don't really know what his response was to the fact that there are people trying to. I do know he almost got in the car one time and came up to the Duluth Dylan Fest, but changed his mind, which is typical Dylan. It was the year that a bunch of guys he had played with on Blood on the Tracks, which, as you know, part of that album was recorded in New York and part in Minneapolis. And the part recorded in Minneapolis was recorded in a couple of nights, and it ended up being almost half the album, and it defined that album, in my opinion. It really made it something else, and hopefully in the next year or year and a half, they'll be getting credit for that, because they never got credit for it either. But they almost enticed Bob to come up and have a listen himself.
That's pretty fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Favorite album?
Oh boy, favorite album. Favorite albums are going to have to change by day, in the week I'm listening, in the moment I'm listening to it. I could put on almost every album. Oh, this is great. This is my favorite album now. On the other hand, lately I've been listening a lot to the album Tempest, one of its most recent. And that 16-minute song about the Titanic, it's got a great song. Some people feel has to do with Duluth, Scarlet Town. It's got some really powerful songwriting in a different way than his early songwriting was. It's different, but I really like it.
Do you think you have done that same kind of arc? The radio show you do today is probably different than the radio show you did 25 years ago. You know what I mean? You're a different person. You know different things. You have different technology.
Yeah.
You know, so are there parallels there?
I never thought of it, but yeah, there are. Absolutely. I mean, I started off, like I say, on reel-to-reel and doing things a certain way, and you know, not having anywhere near the knowledge, or more importantly, for me, the incredible group of interesting people I have gotten to meet because of the show. Each of them bringing their own knowledge and bits of information. And I guess I'm kind of like a sponge, trying to absorb it all. And so in that way, I really have to thank all the people too. Couple in particular that have helped supply me with, you know, I do get an occasional package from New York without enough of an address to figure out who it's coming from. I don't know who's sending me those packages, but thank you, because they're all great quality CDs. And, you know, somebody thinks, oh, it's the front office, it's gotta be this person. And one said, there's nobody it could be except the front office in New York. And so we're trying to narrow that down. I don't have to narrow it down. I'm just happy they're coming.
It's kind of fun being part of a little mystery, isn't it?
Yeah, very fun.
John Bushey, thank you for taking the time with us.
Oh, I'm happy, Karen. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. It's a lot of fun.